Hare Krishna. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 39. This is the second last verse of the chapter. 1.539. Narada Muni speaking. Imam swanigamam brahman avedya madanushtatam adan me jnanam aishvaryam svasmin bhavam chakeshava. O Brahmana, thus by the Supreme Lord Krishna I was endowed first with the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, as inculcated in the confidential parts of the Vedas, then with the spiritual opulences, and then with his intimate loving service. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Communion with the Lord by transmission of the transcendental sound is non-different from the whole spirit Lord Sri Krishna. It is a completely perfect method for approaching the Lord. By such pure contact with the Lord without offense of material conceptions, numbering 10, the devotee can rise above the material plane to understand the inner meaning of the Vedic literatures, including the Lord's existence in the transcendental realm. The Lord reveals his identity gradually to one who has unflinching faith, both in the spiritual master and in the Lord. After this, the devotee is endowed with mystic opulences, which are 8 in number. And above all, the devotee is accepted in the confidential entourage of the Lord and is entrusted with specific service of the Lord through the agency of the spiritual master. A pure devotee is more interested in serving the Lord than in showing an exhibition of the mystic powers dormant in him. Sri Narada has explained all these from his personal experience, and one can obtain all the facilities which Sri Narada obtained by perfecting the chanting process of the sound representation of the Lord. There is no bar for chanting this transcendental sound by anyone, provided it is received through Narada's representative, coming down by the chain of disciplic succession or the parampara system. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyo cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So in the previous verse, Narada Muni said that he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mantra Murtima Murtikam, in the form of mantra. And the verse and purport really are about that. The sound form of Krishna, the mantra form, is the form by which we can approach him without difficulty. And that's pretty much the conclusion of Narada Muni. He experienced that himself by chanting the mantra that's given to him by his spiritual masters in his previous life. And this is the point he's making to Vyasadeva, that Vyasadeva has to be more direct. And the process that really supports that direct surrender to Krishna is mantra meditation, mantra yoga. So here, he's concluding that thus I was endowed first with transcendental knowledge, and then with mystic power, mystic opulence, and then with confidential service. And Srila Prabhupada is focusing on this chanting process again as our means for perfection. And so, we could break down in different ways what it means that Narada Muni is talking about these different stages. And we can look at that pretty closely. I'll go over it a little bit, and then I'll talk mainly about what Prabhupada mentions here, chanting without offense. He says, numbering 10 material conceptions. It's a reference to the 10 offenses in the chanting of the holy name. And so just a little bit about what Narada Muni is mentioning here. One of the first things that happens when we begin to chant to a significant degree is that Shastra starts to make sense. The spiritual knowledge that's contained within it becomes revealed to us. It's not actually an academic pursuit. You can't actually understand, even, I would say even, because Bhagavad Gita is considered an introductory text. Although it's always relevant, it's really appropriate for everybody, even new persons. And as such, you think that you'd understand it just by reading it, but not actually. You can't just study the Sanskrit. It takes a certain orientation, an orientation of appreciating that this is coming from higher power speaking for himself. And if one doesn't completely understand that, as Prabhupada puts it in the introduction, at least, just like when you're watching a movie, set aside your disbelief and absorb yourself in the experience of what the director is trying to give you, and then receive that story. And if you receive it in an honest way like that, you can get something, and you can move towards receiving it more and more. So there's a way in which being properly oriented actually qualifies us to receive transcendental knowledge from Scripture. And chanting with that orientation actually purifies the heart. So Lord Chaitanya says in the first verse of the Shikshastakam that the ocean of transcendental knowledge expands. And so this is one of the symptoms that we actually start to understand the Shastra, and even things that we maybe theoretically accepted start to actually become manifest. This is part of what the growth of the devotee, that they see this starts to happen. Then he mentions, mystic opulences, spiritual opulences. There are a variety of different yogic siddhis mentioned in Shastra, particularly in the 11th canto Bhagavatam. For us, especially in this age, the main thing to understand is, for example, you can actually just control your mind, which is already a spiritual perfection, a significant one, because otherwise the mind is really the master of the entire world. The mind and uncontrolled senses, they're running the show. Nobody can say no. Nobody has any higher alternative. Rupa Goswami compares them to bad masters. Somebody who never gives you time off, he says. Somebody who never shows you any kindness. Imagine you're in a toxic relationship with a boss or a significant other, and they just abuse you, and you just take it over, and you don't see any way out. You don't see, even if you consider the possibility, which many people don't, they just like are enamored of their mind and senses. And so they're never given any time off. They're never given any alternative, any praise, any care at all. And they're just beaten again and again. And that's what the relationship is like. In a relationship of trying to exploit the material energy, we enter into this bondage. And freedom from that is itself a yogic perfection. Because otherwise, as the Yoga Sutras explain, to focus the mind even for a couple of seconds is actually an astonishing amount of control for a conditioned soul to demonstrate. And it's not something you can just do on your own. It's an empowered activity. Chanting Hare Krishna empowers you to actually control your senses. Chanting Hare Krishna empowers you to chant Hare Krishna with attention. When you first start doing it, you may get some ingress of mercy for the beginner, but when you start to really face the power of all the different things in your mind, which don't even manifest all at once because we can't handle that. Just even a one or two at a time, you're like, whoa, I need help. And the chanting process itself is the process of receiving help. So these are spiritual perfections. One time, Srila Prabhupada was asked, Srila Prabhupada or Swamiji, in scripture, we see that advanced devotees sometimes demonstrate these spiritual perfections. What is your yogic perfection? What is your miracle? And he said, all of them. They are all my miracles. I have brought all these people to Krishna's lotus feet and they're practicing bhakti. That is my opulence. And Madhvacharya, one of our predecessor acharyas, he points out in the purport to the 11th canto, verse Evam for the Swapriya Nama Kirtiya, about the chanting Hare Krishna. He says, advanced devotees, very advanced devotees, may or may not externally demonstrate any particular spiritual perfection, except for two. There are two that they always demonstrate. They cannot hide them, and they always have them. Those two, therefore, in the opinion of other acharyas, and in my opinion, are who you should watch out for. Those two, one, everything they say is for the betterment of others. Whatever comes from the mouth is actually a manifestation of mercy. And the other thing, steadiness, transcendental steadiness. They're always there. So that's a little bit about spiritual perfection. And the last thing is intimate service. And Narada Muni, for example, didn't really have any service until it was given to him by his teachers. They engaged him in serving food and cleaning up and doing whatever a young man could do. Not even a young man, he was 5 years old, a young boy. And he was very sincere in that service. And that service grew because of his service to the holy name. He served them, he took the remnants of the prasad, he served the name as instructed by them. And then Krishna appeared to him. And he actually manifested an increased service to Krishna, such that when he left that body, he was given the body we understand as Narada Muni, which is a spiritual body, capable of traveling up and down within any of the material spheres, lower planets, higher planets, middle, this planet, the spiritual world, no problem for him. He has a spiritual body. It's not limited by any need for passports or any material requirements. Just like if you want to enter the water, you have to have a particular body to live there. You can't live there forever in this body. You have to have a certain technology given to you by the force of the material energy. And if you want to enter other planets, you have to have the qualifications. Narada Muni's qualification is that he's empowered by Krishna to go everywhere and anywhere and glorify Krishna and chant the glories of his name and spread bhakti. He has very intimate service, and he shows up in Bhagavatam in basically every canto because of that service. So we get service. We actually get confidential connection to the Guru Parampara and to Krishna and Radha and Krishna by the form of service, and it develops. It's a very intimate thing. So these are the things that Narada Muni is mentioning, and the force of that is brought about by the pure chanting. So in the chanting process, there's 10 offenses to be avoided, and if you can avoid these offenses, which anybody can through intention and understanding, then you can chant what's called offenselessly. And offenseless chanting, performed with the right orientation of faith in the name, actually brings about what's called pure chanting, Shuddhanama. Pure chanting is chanting where the name himself actually descends on our tongue and in our heart and truly makes himself manifest. Because you can't actually chant Krishna's name unless he wants to be there. So chanting purely, chanting without offense, chanting with pure love is actually a divine gift. But our part is to understand what the 10 offenses are and to avoid them. So in various purports, Srila Prabhupada talks about these offenses. I'll go over them in brief, and there's a lot you can say about them, but basically there's a lifestyle that devotees take, which includes chanting itself and includes being mindful before and during their chanting, and also reading and reciting spiritual literature, because the idea, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out, is if you have sambandha gyan, if you have a proper orientation of who Krishna is, who you are, how you relate, how the material world is connected in that relationship, how all these pieces connect. Sambandha means relationship, how they all relate. Then you can chant without offense. If you don't have that, eventually some misconception will come in. So offensive chanting is not like some abstract thing. It's basically misalignment, misunderstandings, and then they can grow and become more dramatic. So the first offense is to blaspheme the devotees, to offend devotees, because devotees are actually receptacles of the mercy of Krishna's names. They're how the names manifest. And if we have a broken relationship with devotees through an offensive attitude toward them, then we have a defective relationship with Krishna's names. It's as simple as that. Second offense is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. Well, actually, the second offense is to consider the demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and their names to be equal to or independent of the names of Krishna or Vishnu. The idea is to understand properly that there's a source, and then there are aspects of that source, of which we're actually also aspects of the source. So there's the creator and there's the creations, and not to equate them falsely, because any aspect of the creation can be empowered. And actually, everybody's empowered in some way. Ants are empowered. Look at their little bodies. You could drop them off this table, it'd be just fine. That's empowerment. Everyone's empowered. But only one person is powerful. And everyone else gets some aspect of their power, including the demigods, who are all more advanced than all of us. And we honor them, revere them as great devotees, but they're not equal to or independent of whatever power they have is given. So that's proper conception, proper orientation. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita in several places, particularly chapter 7, And that helps us to approach the names properly. Third offense is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. And the fundamental thing there is that one should actually have a spiritual master. As Vishwanath points out in his purports to the Bhagavatam, Canto 6, if there is a single pure devotee on the planet and you don't accept them as a guru, you're disobeying the orders of the spiritual master. How? By not accepting the orders, by not accepting a spiritual master in the first place. Good news, all the Puranas actually demonstrate that there is always at least one pure devotee on the planet. Why? Because that's the secret reason why the planet exists. It's actually not just to facilitate everybody's eating, sleeping, and mating. It's fundamentally to give us access to Krishna. And so therefore, there is always some pure devotee. And all you have to do is want them and ask for them. Krishna will send them because he facilitates that. In this day and age, because of Lord Chaitanya, there are many. I've personally met several devotees who I would 108% attest can take anybody back to Godhead. I say that through like really understanding their character and observing them. There's just many in this time, so we're very fortunate that way. And parampara means, as Prabhupada says, the simple succession means one after the other. That's the literal meaning of it. So we're receiving the mercy of devotees one after the other coming in the line. Fourth offense is to blaspheme literature. Again, if you have a proper relationship with Shastra, you can receive the mercy of Krishna. Fifth offense is to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. If you automatically just dismiss the process of chanting as imagination, then you disqualify yourself from receiving the fruits of it because it's actually an offensive attitude. Just consider like, okay, this is wild. The claims that are being made about the chanting of Hare Krishna. All right, but I'm here for it. And that's enough. Simple as that. Sixth offense is to give some mundane interpretation. So to speculate or think, well, it's actually about this or it's actually about that. There's no need. Our acharyas have given some explanations on the holy name, and you can receive that. And you can also receive all the different wisdom in the songs and bhajans, Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, so many different devotees. Narada Muni himself talks about the holy name. No need to speculate. Seventh offense is to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting. So it's actually not an offense to have materialistic desire in your heart. What is an offense, and an egregious one, according to the acharyas, is to consider, well, because Krishna is saying that chanting is so pure, it purifies one of any consequence of sinful activity. Therefore, I will intentionally do whatever I want, and I will then engage in the chanting of Hare Krishna as a purifying process, because then I'm all set. And that's no bueno. It's not good. That's kind of cheating. To take the mercy of Krishna. It's like being in a relationship. I've used this example before. If you understand your partner to be loving and dedicated to you, it's like, I can do whatever I want. I can cheat on them. I can beat them. I can do whatever I want. They'll come back to me. They'll love me. That's a hideous attitude to take to Krishna. Eighth offense is to don't do it. Eighth offense is to consider the chanting as a mundane process for material advancement. This is just for like becoming more pious so I can stay in the world and enjoy more, have better karma. No, it's just a secondary benefit. Is you become purified. It's actually not what the chanting's about. It's about Krishna wanting to have a relationship with you and you being capable of having one with him. So don't view it as a mundane thing. Ninth offense is to give the holy name to those who are not really ready to receive it. Particularly if you're a teacher, don't initiate people just for the sake of making followers. Don't, as the Bible says, do not cast pearls before swine. If somebody's not interested, let them be. Just let them be. That's okay. And the 10th offense is to maintain your material attachments, even if after understanding that you shouldn't. It's not an offense to have material attachments. It is an offense to maintain them actively. Because it's like, you can have weeds in a garden, but don't water them. Don't block them off and give them special food and say, I name you and you're my friend and pet. You're my little so-and-so. Don't do that. If you see the weed, work on it. And if you can't work on it, get help from Krishna. Ask for help. But don't maintain your material attachments. Try to let go of them gradually, at least. That's it. And anybody can do these things. Anybody can actually, by intention, be oriented properly. And if you're avoiding these offenses, you can chant offenselessly in what's called Shraddha Nam Abhas. Shraddha means with faith. Nam Abhas means the glimmer of the holy name will be manifest. The very beginnings of Krishna's mercy are manifest because we're chanting offenselessly. We're asking for him to manifest, and he can actually and will manifest purely through that. So that's a summary. Every one of those 10 offenses you can expand on and give a class on itself, really. So I would say look up the 10 offenses, chanting Hare Krishna. I don't have a resource that's handy on that. I can send one in the chat.
I have one.
You have one?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's from ISKCON Desire Tree. It's from the Padma Purana.
Yeah, that's just a listing. That's good.
Yeah,
it's a listing of the 10 offenses. Prabhupada, in different purports, there's a nice one in the second canto, I don't remember which one. He lists them and he gives descriptions. But that'll do.
It's also in the morning program.
Yeah, just a list of the 10 offenses.
Yeah.
And that's taken from the Padma Purana. So send that.
Okay.
And now let's take any questions or comments or reflections. Reflections mean anything you've heard. Just to summarize, I guess, Narada Muni is talking about the chanting process. Prabhupada talks about chanting offenselessly, and then Narada Muni mentions how there's the ingress of spiritual knowledge, the attainment of spiritual perfection or opulence, and then the gift of divine service, intimate service to Krishna.
Couple of things. I appreciate the connection you made about how we can control our minds if we're properly oriented. And chanting with attention also helps us understand Shastra more. And then our japa affirmation was around chanting with attention, and that we can control our attention. We can
That's right.
control where we put our attention. So there was a nice connection there, synchronicity. And how you spoke about how the chanting process itself is the process of receiving help, and that it's not just for purification, but actually it's for relationship, divine relationship.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, that purification culminates in divine relationship.
Yeah. And that one other thing I loved you said that really had me thinking was how we get confidential association with Radha and Krishna through service.
That's right. Yeah, service is a gift.
Mm.
Your seva will save you. That's when the Buddha put it. So hold on tight. It's like it's a rope that's dragging you back home.
I love that.
And
Seva will save you.
seva to the name is also an important service. Nam seva. So there's our service that we perform with our mind and senses, very important. And there's our service to the holy name. And that's for everybody. Everybody gets to chant Krishna's names. Everybody gets divine seva. Srila Prabhupada talks about it in one of his purports. In his spoken description of the Hare Krishna mantra. Many of you may have heard it. He says, how does he put it? It's the same talk where he says this chanting is just like the cry of a child for its mother, right? Mm-hmm. And he says even a child can do it, even a dog can do it. He says. Mm-hmm. So this is Mahaprabhu's mercy. Actually, we did see Mahaprabhu's Leela, literally animals chanting. We're not necessarily so empowered. He can do like that, but at least we can help others to chant, and we can at least get ourselves to chant with attention. And that's also seva. And further service is manifested through that.
Okay.
More reflections.
Hare Krishna.
Beautiful.
I was thinking about how I love the conversation around the 10 offenses. I was just thinking about that yesterday a little bit, and it's really easy for us to want and be almost take offense that we make offenses, like nobody wants to be like, oh yeah, I'm the one who made an offense. And I think that that's really important to maybe if you want to speak on that a little bit or help us hear more about that, because ultimately all of us are inclined to make some sort of offense, especially like our japa affirmation this morning, like chanting inattentively. I'm super guilty of that sometimes, right? So I just I would love to hear some like words of support, words of, just how to help us all kind of understand that, yeah, we make offenses, and how do we move through understanding that about ourselves.
Well, the first stage of development in any skill is you don't know that you don't know. Like if I pick up a violin right now and start to try to play for you, I could think I'm really good. I could, because I don't actually have any idea about what a violin's supposed to sound like, right? And everyone else will be like, wow, okay, got some news for you, buddy. And then you start to realize that you don't know. And that's actually advancement. It's actually advancement to recognize that you don't know something, you're not expert in it.
Mm.
So it can feel, that's the part that can feel tough, because as soon as there's the awareness of your own incompetency, the ego, the false ego, starts to be challenged. But just understanding, like, you've already leveled up, because most of the world is just running around thinking, I'm good, I'm all set, I got it all under control. No idea of their relationship with Krishna. So that's one thing. Another thing is, and I forgot to mention this in the list of the offenses, so thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that the root cause of all the offenses is inattentive chanting. And therefore, the root cause of avoiding the offenses is attentive chanting. Because if we're actually present and attentive, we get everything we need. That's the fundamental lesson. There's no lack. Like, Krishna is always there, actually. He's never inattentive. That's there in Shastra. Gajendra realizes this. He says, you're never inattentive. You're always waiting for me to look to you. Krishna is always providing. He's always waiting. From every breath we're taking physically, just, all the ways we're dependent that way, to spiritual sustenance. It's just a matter of if we're present. So if you start to realize that life is just kind of built around that you get what you give, and if you're present, you receive what you need, then it's the same principle. It's not a matter of shaming yourself, like, oh, I don't have enough, or I'm messing up, or don't let your false ego trip you up. It's not about that. It's just about refreshing this principle of presence and awareness, because that's all we're able to do. We're little units of attention, and that's enough. That's enough. We're not nothing. If you embrace the idea that you're nothing, then you avoid the responsibility of having to be present and having to be real, having to be attentive. And if you just embrace that truth that you can be present, then everything else you need comes to you. All the ways that you're deficient, that becomes rectified. Krishna says, I preserve what you have and I carry what you lack. That's no problem. Just got to be present. So, so when there's a lesson that comes, and the lesson can be, you can do this better, or the lesson can be a little bit tougher, just receive it. Because if you can sit in the face of a lesson with courage, trusting that whatever I need is coming through this channel, that's okay, you make such rapid advancement. Because Krishna is like a loving parent. No loving parent wants to see their child suffer. As soon as the parent sees there's an inclination, the beginning, an inkling of the lesson dawning in the heart and mind of their child, they're like, good, I can take them out of timeout. They don't want to see you suffer. They want to see you grow. I want to see you be happy. I want to see you be like on the same level as me. Can't wait for that to happen. That's how parents are thinking. So as soon as we see a lesson come, just understand that's just to get us to the next stage, so we don't ever have to deal with that again. And embrace it. And the more we can embrace it with that mood, Prabhupada puts it, one who can accept punishment as the mercy of the master becomes qualified for advancement. It's not actually punishment. There's no such thing as punishment. There's just rectification. And so this comes back to humility. This is the cornerstone of the devotee's growth. If you can have that attitude of, I'm here to learn. I'm always ready to be corrected, and I'm not any of these deficiencies anyway. They're just temporary things. I'm not the disease. It's just passing through. I'm a servant of Krishna. I'm an eternal, resplendent, conscious living entity. This is all just my temporary condition, and whatever can help me get out of that temporary condition and back to health is good. Then you'll be fine. So those are some thoughts on that. And the fundamental application of it is attentive chanting. So it's not just you, it's literally everybody. We're second by second dragged away from the holy name. And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's our Kurukshetra. So embrace it. And pretty much every acharya has written about this chanting process and the process of bringing the mind back, because they know, even when they're freed from the challenge, they know that we're all still in it. So take shelter of them. Read what Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote in the Harinam Chintamani. Read Prabhupada's purports. Hear the bhajans. Read Rupa Goswami's Namashtaka. Be around other devotees, because that is the fundamental relationship. Our relationship with the holy name and our own process of bringing the mind back is like where so much advancement comes. Thank you. More comments or questions or reflections? Anything else you heard?
I just really resonate with the when we chant to a significant extent, Shastra makes sense. When I first got into bhakti, I approached it the way that I always have in my life. I got all the books and started reading everything. And I did read through the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam on my own. But I sit here now
Read
in
Oh, you read 1, 2, and 3.
I read 1, 2, 3. Yeah, read all the way through the third canto on my own, just doing it every morning. And but I can't say that I understood it. And I think if I went back now and started again, I would understand it so much more. But I bet that's a perpetual thing. Like,
it is.
as
I've
advanced as
many
advanced.
times, and I still feel like I don't understand it.
Right.
Well, I mean, not to discourage you, I understand it more every time.
Right. I know, but I was sitting here thinking, well, maybe I should go now that I'm chanting, and I've been chanting for almost a year, consistently 16 rounds. Maybe I should go back and start at Canto 1, or should I just keep going where I left off and then go around again?
Just understand that if you start at Canto 1, by the time you get to Canto 3 again, you can also start again at Canto 1. It's never going to. So don't worry about going back to Canto 3 or 4 and reading from there. That's fine. That's just the way it is. It's a relationship. The relationship is deepening.
Thank you.
Yeah, the relationship with Shastra is an interesting thing. I think you wanted to say something about
Yeah, I was going to highlight the same point. It's like I forget the word. It's a person who's only like in their head, like it's all knowledge, right? It's not like,
yeah.
I think there's a term for that. But it's like and like the way you describe it is like, oh yeah, like chanting is the lighter for that fuel almost. It's like, okay, you have all this knowledge, all right, what, like I gotta like extract it and like use it and like really connect with it more than just like, okay, now I have the map of everything. Like now I know everything about all of the shastras. Like if you only stay in building the map in that sense, like you aren't going to really like apply it. And potentially, I think like
Absolutely.
and like chanting is a great. That's great. I never thought about it that way. That's really good.
Yeah. So first you don't understand, and then you understand more. And then pride can come in. You got to deal with that. Make sure you don't get proud. And then you got to apply it. Because and there is really tremendous knowledge and wisdom. There's really nothing like it in these literatures. All these things are in the context of Krishna's fundamental message to us, which is surrender to me, relationship with him. And somebody who's trying to do that, who's trying to affect that surrender, qualifies themselves to understand more. And if you really want to level up your understanding, like if in this life you have a particular desire to understand things, you have like a connection to, maybe an attachment to that particular opulence, knowledge, then what you really should do is try to help other people to advance in their spiritual knowledge, because if you do that, you get such a level up. And that doesn't have to be like an intellectual activity. It doesn't even have to be teaching exactly. It's really connecting people to Krishna's names and the fundamental principles of bhakti. You're a servant. This is how you can serve. This is the process of chanting. There is God. This is how you can know Him. Because that's the wellspring of knowledge for everyone else as well as it is for us. And so, if you don't do that, if you don't try to do that, you also create a ceiling for your own relationship with the truth. It's described like having a pot of water. If you have, if you maintain all that knowledge for yourself, you just keep it, you don't share it. That's like having a pot of water with a hole in it. You'll lose it. So the Brahmanas are described as carrying the wisdom of the knowledge of the Vedas. They have to share it. That's their fundamental relationship with knowledge. They study and they share it. The Brahmana doesn't just keep it for themselves, because it's never ours anyway. It's everybody's.
Yeah.
So having that orientation of like, wow, I'm really grateful for this, and whatever I can do to share it with others and be an instrument, for Krishna's mercy, that really deepens our relationship. And that's an attitude we find in advanced devotees. Advanced devotees in any tradition are always interested in helping other people to advance. So if you whether you consider yourself advanced, whether you have the tools for helping other people to advance is not important. What's important is like internally orienting yourself that, yeah, this belongs to everybody. Everyone should have this. Whatever you think I can do, Krishna, you help me to do it. I'll help you to share these names, this truth. I want to be your instrument. And if you have that orientation, then Shastra really starts to light up for you, because you're handing it out with both hands, and you can't give without getting. So that's my addition to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And staying in the knowledge, like the place of obtaining knowledge and understanding more from an intellectual place, like practicing jnana,
Yeah.
right? And then bhakti is like having a relationship with the knowledge that you're and an emotion and
Yeah.
feeling connected to the knowledge that you're
Mm.
you're learning and receiving, and then offering it all back.
Right. The knowledge
In
isn't an
seva.
abstraction. In
Yeah.
Gyan, it's an abstraction. And
Right.
therefore, there's all kinds of room in Gyan for misunderstanding and misalignment.
Mm-hmm.
We see like the offenses in the holy name, they're basically just like taking something about the truth and taking it out of its context and messing it up. It's like, that's the problem. As long as you put it in context, everything's great. And so the fundamental context is that it's coming from a supreme person, and I have a relationship of service. That's what bhakti is. That's all bhakti is. It's really simple, not complicated. And if you have that, then it flows. And if you don't, then you're talking about misunderstandings creeping in, and impersonal this or gyan that, and because then you're using or misusing an aspect of reality for some other purpose.
Yeah, that's the thing with Gyan. Like, you can acquire and learn and be a bookworm. But you don't actually fully learn it and know it until you actually build a personal relationship with Krishna. Until you actually know him, love him, serve him. He's the ultimate one point reason that you're here.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, all that other stuff starts to it just starts to go wicked fast, because he's the ultimate source of truth.
Yeah. So it's an applied science.
Yeah, it is, and that's what I love. This practice is the perfect practice. I always say this. Bhakti is the perfect practice. If you really want to connect with God, this is the way to do it, because God really is just striving to have a connection with us, like the parent waiting for our child to come out of timeout so we can spend time with them and help them grow. Krishna's waiting for us to come out of timeout, and he's waiting for us to make that connection to him. And the only way to do that is just build that personal relationship. Shastra helps substantiate the relationship, helps substantiate the practice. And Ganya just kind of flows naturally from that. That's just my opinion.
Correct. I agree. Jai, any more reflections?
Oh, I was just gonna say thank you so much. Very grateful for you going in more depth through like the 10 offenses. Because I've, I hear them, I've read them, but it's good to hear more clarification on them. And I didn't realize like some of the things that you were saying. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that is. That
Yeah.
makes sense. So
You're
so
welcome.
thank you.
And as I was mentioning them, I realized how we didn't have enough time to go through them, in depth. And I was thinking maybe there is a use or a desire among the devotees. We could have like a japa workshop to talk about chanting purely, and then actually try to practice that together. We could have that be a weekend. We could have it be a couple hours, whatever the devotees want. That's a classic thing. That's a
That'd be
a
great.
thing that everybody could use. I've been in that, and I think periodically, if you get back into it, it realigns you. It's like
Let's do it in the
getting
new year.
your car tuned up or something. So
Mhm.
let's think on that. And if there's a desire, I see some nodding heads, then do it. I'd be happy.
Mhm. That'd be great. Maybe a January
Yeah.
weekend. Mhm. New year, new
Exactly.
attention.
All
Okay.
right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Shnardan Muni ki jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai.
Yeah.
Vanchai
Kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubheva
Patanam
Bhavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
Namo
Namaha.
Namaha. Jai. Glories to the Burlington Bhakti Sangha and beyond. Thank you for your kind ears, and special shout out to our YouTube crew. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.